Approval of the minutes? Do the motion? Approve the minutes?
Approve the minutes. I move to approve the minutes of August 16th.
Here she is. I second the motion.
Any comments or questions over the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Next, we have the police report.
You guys want me here?
Sure.
Okay. It's the West Vincent Township Police Department report for August 2021. For training, we have virtual crowd management, firearms, and internal affairs. Summary totals: number of calls for service 144, number of crimes investigated 16, number of arrests 4, a DUI, controlled substance, driving under the influence, reckless endangerment, a DUI, alcohol and controlled substance, restrictions of alcoholic beverages and careless driving, and indecent assault, harassment, disorderly conduct, public drunkenness, and Act 64. Number of traffic stops 16, number of accidents investigated 6.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
Next on our list is the bills list.
I'm looking. Would you like a motion right off the bat?
That'd be nice.
Okay, I can make a motion to approve. Excuse me. I don't even see. We must have lost it. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, I make a motion to approve the bills list in the amount of $448,282.48.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments, questions on the bills list? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the treasurer's report. Michelle's up.
For the treasurer's report, month ending August 31st, 2021, I added a township overview cover page that gives us a total township balance of $13,781,155.76. In general fund specifically, we have an ending fund balance of $4,009,764.22. I give a budget breakdown. In the month of August, West Vincent Township received $5,742 in real estate taxes, $277,477 in earned income, and $62,044 in deed transfer tax in the month of August. Skipping ahead to open space, we have an ending fund balance of $2,792,753.28. All open space activity this month was related to the acquisition of the Maxwell easement. Capital project reserve, we have an ending fund balance of $679,024.84. For Capital Road, we have an ending fund balance of $4,639,558.21. All of the engineering included the payments made to McMahon for services on Buttonwood Bridge project and payments made to LTL for engineering services on Houndstooth, Kimberton, and Art School Roads, Kimberton Road Bridge. In capital equipment, month ending August 31st, we have an ending fund balance of $477,171.40. In liquid fuels, an ending fund balance of $80,935.72. For sewer, we have an ending fund balance of $75,492.47. In the ARPA fund, the American Rescue Plan Act fund, we have that, still that first payment of $309,360.24. And in escrows, $317,095.38.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back up to the public hearing.
I just want to make one, one comment
Oh, okay.
on that. John Eldridge sent an email to a couple of us, and since he wasn't sure he'd be here, so I'm going to respond to him to reach out to Michelle directly.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any questions, comments on the budget? Treasurer's report? Okay, thank you. Now we'll move back up to the public hearing. Phoenixville Regional.
Okay, we have I would make a motion to approve.
No, we're
Wait.
going to the hearing.
Oh, hearing.
Yeah, we're going back up, yes.
We're hearing on the motion to approve.
Well, we have to have.
You have to open the motion.
Look, Joan, what my
Let me
voice said.
start.
You do it. You're told to do the big buck.
So there's a procedure for amending and enacting a comprehensive plan, and in this case, the Phoenixville Regional Comprehensive Plan is going to be considered by the Board of Supervisors for adoption as its comprehensive plan, as well as being part of the Phoenixville Regional Comprehensive Plan. I'm just going to mark for the record some exhibits. T1 is the Regional Comprehensive Plan that's being adopted. T2 is the proof of publication of the public notice advertising the consideration of the board tonight. T3 is a letter from the Chester County Planning Commission dated June 21st, 2021, providing input. T4 is a letter from West Whiteland Township dated June 10th, 2021. And T5 is a letter from Upper Euclid Township dated June 10th, 2021. I don't know if the board wants to offer anything first, but I would ask if there's any public comment. If you could just raise your hand or approach the dais. Sir?
Brian Curry, Black Horse Road, Chester Springs. The question I have is, when this appeared earlier, I made some comments about, the content of it with the directions or what the basis were for it. And I never heard anything back about whether they were incorporated, they were ignored, or whatever. Does someone have any idea what happened to that? Is there some expectation when somebody raises an issue that they should get a response?
May I?
Feel free.
I would say the expectation is if you make a comment, it will be read and considered. Not necessarily would you get a personal response.
But do we hear, or is there any feedback as to what that consideration consists of?
Now it's your turn.
Well, listen, this is an opportunity. This was a comprehensive regional plan that was considered and adopted by the region. And it's, right now, we are, the members of the region, the individual townships are considering this for adoption. So that was generated by the Regional Comprehensive Plan Task Force. This is an opportunity for you to provide comment. It's not an opportunity for everyone to engage in a question and answer session. So if that was your comment, then
And
we will take it into consideration.
yeah, we did have a specific opportunity for comment and discussion when it was briefed to the planning commission, and we invited everybody.
Yes, John?
Mr. Chairman, the amendment is solely to allow West Pikeland Township into the joint planning document. And there's no other changes to the document in itself. It is to allow West Pikeland to be a member of the Joint Planning Commission. Several changes made to add their name to it, but there are no changes other than that to the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so in other words, people can make comments, but they never hear whether they're addressed one way or the other.
You can look at the
Okay,
plan.
thank you.
The plan's up on the website. You can take a look.
Anyone else?
Any other?
Oh, sorry.
No, just any other.
do this part. Thank you. I would make a motion to approve the Resolution 18 to 2021 adoption of Phoenixville Regional Comprehensive Plan.
I'll second that motion.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we move on to the next public hearing.
Okay, so that hearing is over. Now, the next one is concerning the codification of the township's ordinances. I'm going to mark Exhibit T1 is the codification ordinance. T2 is the code, which is over 800 pages long. I don't have a copy of it here in front of me. T2 is a public notice. I'm sorry, T3 is the public notice. T4 is a proof of publication. And T5 and T6 are two letters from the Chester County Planning Commission dated April 26th concerning modifications to the zoning ordinance. There's some minor modifications to the zoning ordinance and the subdivision land development ordinance. So with that, turn it over to the board if there's any public comment. Codification is a procedure by which the township is permitted under the St. Clair Township Code to compile all of the existing ordinances, which may be in various different places, put them in one place. There's a company that does that, so we have one book that we can look to that. So that this is the procedure, and the township has been involved in its review for several months now, and this is the culmination of that.
Several years, isn't it?
Yes, but he wasn't
Several
here
years.
then.
So it's finally done. Any comments, questions? Yes, Brian?
I want to ask the question, and you can tell me that, it's not so easy asked at this point again. But at the Planning Commission meeting, they mentioned that in the codification, you would look through all the township ordinances and incorporated where they touched on the zoning ordinances into the zoning ordinance. And I know there's going to be a web-based version where you can go and get all the linkages that way. It was also said that there's going to be a PDF version. And the question I have is the PDF version also going to have everything incorporated into it? Or is the PDF version going to be the same one that we have right now, and then you need to go and find out and see what was added to it?
The PDF version will be the version of the codification.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other comments, questions? Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll close the hearing and
Okay.
turn it over to the board.
Oh, cool. Then I could make a motion to adopt and enact the West Vincent Township codification of ordinances.
Second the motion.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we'll move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Houndstooth Lane Storm Sewer Project is nearly complete. It'll be less than what the budgeted amount, and final documents will be presented to the board in October meeting. In case you missed the Hurricane Ida project, or storm, we lost a portion of the Button Road Bridge. The Highway Department worked better part of 24 to 30 straight hours to reopen the bridge on a temporary basis. They're still working to complete it so that it can withstand another significant rainstorm. We also lost, didn't lose, but there was significant damage to the Art School Road storm sewer pipe, and we've ordered the necessary material, and that'll be delivered shortly. The Fellowship Road Bridge is settling, and it's continued to settle each week. And the engineer and the Highway Department are working to figure out what the problem is and address it. We anticipate a cost to the township of these events between $600,000 and $800,000. We've been working, the emergency management group has been working with the county to get these the projects identified and get them into the process to get reimbursed in some fashion by the emergency management stuff. The Highway Department's beginning to work on a roadside mowing again. The shredding event will be held on October 2nd. Household batteries will be recycled. And Brian O'Leary, the director of the County Planning Commission, will be in attendance at a meeting Wednesday night to talk to the committees and the board. Finally, some of you may have noticed, at least 630 people did, that the township has a new website. We updated the website September 8th. We've had 430 unique visitors to the site. And all in all, I think beginning as more people get to use it, it's a little friendlier to use. And information that will be added to it each week, so it'll be a better product for the township. That's enough, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Brian?
You mentioned that the township is back mowing the roads again. Does this mean that the mower that had the damaged engine is repaired?
Yes, sir. Oh, one last thing. Someone asked a couple meetings ago about the company who provided the software package for the cybersecurity. That company's name is Sentinel-1.
A further question on the mower. I think that was limited to $15,000. Did the final bill end up being?
I haven't seen the final bill yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll move on to old business, conditional use hearing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the solicitor has a conflict with this hearing.
Oh, okay. So
So
we'll
we have a-
reschedule that?
We have,
Okay.
a-
Oh,
no, we
special
have
counsel.
We have
Okay.
a special counsel.
We'll switch counsel.
Oh, Mark.
If it pleases the board, I have some reduced copies of the exhibit that I have on the easel that I can get.
Fine.
Do you want a little more time?
Yes. Can I just have a minute? We're gonna have some administrative things to go through. Ms. Nagy, would you like a
One for
copy of the board exhibits?
Sure.
Both, I guess.
Set down.
I think so.
Almost to the deep breath. Where we can rename this hearing.
You want to grab one of those?
Do you,
More.
No, that.
Oh.
That's the job.
I'm sorry, I did, because I've seen it. I wasn't even thinking shit.
I have, does the chair usually, Mr.
Mark,
Chairman?
do you want it
Do you
convened?
usually run these hearings, or do you have the solicitor? Do you have the solicitor run these hearings, or do you?
Usually, I think so.
You want him
Yeah.
to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. that's fine.
I have pieces of the application. I don't know that I have the full application. I assume that'd be part of your exhibit package?
Yes, then that, and this will be my only exhibits, then we won't have to.
Okay.
Take time out to perform.
Perfect. If we're ready, then we'll go on the record. My name is Anthony Verway. I will be counsel with the board this evening for this conditional use hearing. We are here on the application of, is it Rotelli?
Yes.
Rotelli Development Company, the applicant for the property located at 1871 Kimberton Road, Phoenixville, PA 19460, identified as tax parcel number 25-5-34.1, capital A. The property consists of 1.1 acres located in the Kimberton Village District and is unimproved. The applicant requests conditional use approval to permit stormwater facilities, as well as cut and fill within the prohibited steep slopes area, that's steep slopes greater than 25%, pursuant to section 1704.B.2, subsections A and B of the West Vincent Township zoning ordinance, and conditional use approval to permit construction and changes to grade by cuts and fills on soils with high water tables pursuant to section 2306.A, subsections 1 and 3 of the Township zoning ordinance. Very briefly, a conditional use, for those that you are not familiar, is a use that is a permitted use within the township. The conditions are there to require the applicant to show that the intensity of the use will not have an adverse effect or impact on the township, and the board has an opportunity to place conditions on any approvals under those provisions. There is an opportunity for individuals to seek party status, and party status would permit you to cross-examine witnesses, and if the decision is not something you agree with, it would offer you the opportunity to file an appeal in the Court of Common Pleas. Is there anyone that would like to seek party status this evening? There being none, we'll move to the next.
Is,
I'm sorry?
looking at the woman in the blue shirt at the bottom, she took party status on the zoning hearing board. I
Right,
just want to
but-
make sure she knows what
Okay.
she's missing.
Did you want to become a party, ma'am? Does anyone here want to become a party to this hearing? Right, but if you seek party status, that would give you an opportunity to cross-examine witnesses and to appeal if you're dissatisfied with the decision. Do you want to become a party? Okay. Would you stand up and give me your name and address, please?
Yes, Michan,
Please spell that.
M-I-Q-U-N, Robinson, 1883 Old Kimberton Road.
Is that Phoenixville? Okay.
19460.
Now, did you receive a notice of this hearing?
Yes.
And you live within 500 feet of this property?
We're one house over.
Okay, thank you. Will the board permit this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So,
If I may just ask a point of clarification.
certainly.
So the only way to comment on this matter is to be identified first as a party status member.
Actually, no, I was going to get to that in just a second. Becoming a party gives you an opportunity to cross-examine witnesses and participate in the hearing process. At the end of the hearing, the public will have an opportunity for comment on this particular application. Is there anyone else who would like to become a party? Okay, there being none, we'll move to the next kind of housekeeping bit, and that is the entry of board exhibits. Board Exhibit 1 is the application of Rotelli Development Company dated March 1, 2021. Exhibit B2 is the second submission of an application of Rotelli Development Company with payment dated July 14th, 2021. And Ms. Nagy, I assume that you'll explain what happened in that process?
Yes.
Thank you. Exhibit B3 is a letter from the applicant dated August 24th, 2021, requesting amendment of the application to include relief under Section 2306 of the zoning ordinance. Exhibit B4 is proof of publication of the notice of this hearing in the Daily Local News on September 6th, 2021 and September 13th of 2021. Exhibit B5 is an affidavit of mailing of the notice to all neighboring properties within 500 feet of the subject property on September 2nd, 2021. Exhibit B6 is a review letter of the proposed conditional use application prepared by LTL Consultants dated March 23, 2021. Exhibit B7 is a review letter of the proposed conditional use application prepared by the Chester County Planning Commission dated April 19, 2021. Exhibit B8 is a tax parcel map and aerial of the subject property. And Exhibit B9 is the West Vincent Township zoning ordinance, which is incorporated herein by reference. Those being the exhibits, I'd ask the applicant to present their case.
Thank you. My name is Jill Nagy, and I'm here tonight representing Rotelli Development, the applicant. We did bring for the board a full application that includes the zoning variance decision in this particular case. I guess we would mark that applicant 1. And also before you is a small depiction of what Mr. Mockamer has up there, and we would call that applicant 2 for the record. Within the application, you will find a zoning decision from the Zoning Hearing Board of West Vincent Township. In that decision, the applicant sought several variances, including one for Section 2306, which is presently pending before the board. So as a housekeeping matter, we did seek zoning relief from that particular section. But in order to tie this up, we are here before you as a conditional use, since that's an additional requirement, even though the zoning hearing board provided a variance from the technical requirements of that provision. During that particular zoning decision that we'd asked the board to take notice of, several residents were admitted party status, including Mrs. Robinson. That decision was not appealed, granting all the variances. So now we are here before you on two limited issues for a conditional use this evening. I do have one witness, Mr. Mockamer, and at this point, I will ask him to state his full name and occupation for the record.
Full name is Keith Lockmer. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm the owner of Ancient Engineering.
And during that process, have you prepared and submitted conditional use applications as part of your engineering experience?
Yes, I have.
Have you worked with stormwater and wetlands issues as part of your engineering experience?
Yes, I have.
Did you testify before the West Vincent Township Zoning Hearing Board in support of the application for variances for this site?
Yes, I did.
Were you recognized by the Zoning Hearing Board as an expert for purposes of testimony that evening?
Yes, I was.
Would the board like to go to any further questions regarding Mr. Mockamer's credentials or experience?
No.
Mr. Mockamer, with that being said, can you please describe for the board what you have before you in the application?
Yeah, effectively, I guess just an overview of the property itself. It's been described as roughly a 1.1 acre parcel. Just with the smaller copies in front of you and also on the exhibit, this is Pemberton Road, which is down on the bottom of the sheet. Everything that you see in orange on the exhibit is proposed impervious, which includes the proposed dwelling, the driveway, and the bridge that would be the stream crossing. The areas in blue is actually the existing stream. I would note to our site we have a little less than a half square mile of drainage. And part of the permitting process through DEP, we'd obtained GP8 as well as we would have to follow through after this hearing with submissions for a final GP7 permit. We do have a pocket of wetlands on the site down near the stream. We're not actually proposing any disturbance to those wetlands. They were a subject of the one section of the zoning hearing, which was granted. We do have septic testing, which is near the rear. We have a primary and replacement. And then working with your township engineer, Mr. Latshaw, we actually depict stormwater controls that were previously worked out in review, albeit they would need final review on our resubmission. I would note that the special portions of trying to protect the existing trees, there's actually only one tree that meets the specimen type category that would be removed from the property, and that actually falls within the dwelling itself. We've actually been able to preserve all the other trees, and in your precautionary slopes, the over 25% actually is a small area outside of our limit of disturbance, and the remaining portions of the steep slope are in that 15+% category. And that's related to section 1704B1. Our limit of disturbance outside of the area of section 2306, which is the high groundwater areas, we depicted a 100-year floodplain, which is before our stormwater improvements, our dwelling, any of our septic, and the limit of construction within the high groundwater within that floodplain area is essentially access from Kimberton Road across the stream, and then accessing around and protecting trees to get up to the dwelling.
So the application itself is simply for a single-family dwelling unit?
That's correct.
And working with the township, was there any other areas where you could do the septic testing in order to save those other features on the property?
No, essentially we worked with the health department. It was identified that we had two viable areas for septic testing.
And is the configuration of the driveway at the request of the engineer or in conjunction with your discussions with him in order to save trees and other natural features on the property?
Yeah, we worked with the township engineer. Originally, we had a layout that we tried to come more direct. And his review had requested that we actually come out and around to try to make sure we preserved an additional tree, which we've worked with him, and we, upon final submission, will be submitting the necessary details and certifications from our landscape architect.
And can you confirm for the board, I know you talked about some different permits you'd have to get from DEP. Can you explain that that would be a condition after this conditional use, that you would have to finalize all those permits?
That's correct. And the outside permits beyond the township, we did have conservation district approval on a prior version of the plan. Because working through with your engineer, we would be resubmitting back to the conservation district for erosion control plan approval. That would kind of be a minor review because they looked at the plan, but we have to have it, so to speak, recertified. And then as far as our access across the stream, that would be a minor road crossing as it's defined by DEP, which is a GP7 permit. To gain access for testing and all the work that we've done at this point, we did obtain a temporary crossing of the stream, which is a GP8. We worked with DEP's engineer, Mohammed Abbasi, on that approval, and he would be looking at it on its final approval for the GP7.
At the zoning hearing board, some of the residents raised concerns regarding the bridge. Can you describe to the board a little bit how that bridge will be designed to offset any of those concerns with regard to backup of the stream?
Yeah, the biggest concern with the stream is actually impacts to the stream, which are required by DEP. The size of the bridge is actually set by state requirements. We have to be able to pass a certain design year flow underneath the bridge, and then we have to make sure that our 100-year floodplain is not impacted above or below the project itself. And that's something that we would have final submissions not only to DEP, but we would actually submit the same studies and so forth to your township engineer for review.
Based upon LTL's comments with regard to additional studies and reviews, is that something that you'll be submitting with any type of building permit to the township?
Rotelli would actually be applying for the building permit for the house. My office would be submitting all the land planning and engineering design portions of that for the grading permit plan.
So you don't have any objection to supplying that additional information that LTL asked for in its particular in its review letter?
No, we do not. We'll supply that requested information.
And similarly, the Chester County Planning Commission asked that the applicant review requirements in finalizing its plans to the township. Do you have any objection to complying with those comments and looking at those additional studies that mimic LTL's
No, we do not.
requirements?
We'll provide those.
Mr. Mockamer, do you think that the proposed use on the property is consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance in this particular zoning district?
Yes, I believe that it does, and in fact, that was, so to speak, anchored with the decisions by the zoning hearing board on the relief.
And except for the relief that was granted based upon zoning ordinance provisions, does this plan meet the other applicable sections of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, it does.
Do you believe that this use and location is consistent with the comprehensive plan for the township?
Yes, I do believe it is.
Do you believe that this use will in any way adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the residents of the township?
No, it will not.
Do you believe that this use is consistent with the surrounding uses in the neighborhood?
Yes, it's consistent in its residential nature and similar stream crossings by other residential properties.
Do you believe that the access to the property will be safe based upon the structure and the design of it at this point?
Yes, I do believe it will, and that is something we've done the design as it's depicted in accordance with the standards set by the state as well as what will be reviewed by the township.
And the additional permitting requirements for the state?
Correct.
Do you believe, based upon your experience with Rotelli, that the construction will be accomplished using sound design and engineering principles?
Yes, I believe it will, and I've worked with Rotelli for about a 15-year period.
And do you believe the proposed use, when you come to building permit and planning stages, will incorporate the proper landscaping, screening, and buffering in accordance with the township ordinances.
Yes, it will.
With that being said, I don't have any further questions of this particular witness.
Does the board have questions?
Yes. Did you by chance get out and measure the height of the stream during the last storm?
I was not there during the last storm. I can say that based on data that's available for the stream itself, we've identified the overall watershed for that, which that's part of our application to DEP is doing the hydrology that essentially sets those levels. Part of that is effectively locating and setting the level for the floodplain, which is in this area before our stormwater systems. So that is something that certainly, we were not there during the last storm, but we used the appropriate data to do those calculations.
Now, a couple times you mentioned the 100-year floodplain. If I'm not mistaken, we've blown past that. That's over. So we're now in the, let's call it the 1,000-year floodplain. So are you going to structure this bridge in such that it's going to pass the 1,000 years?
We would follow the guidance of not only your ordinance, but also DEP's requirement. At this point, as far as for consideration of those, we are required to show for the 100-year. There are times where DEP will come back and ask us to show the 500-year. We've not, in my experience, ever been asked to do a 1,000-year on this size of a facility.
So having gone through zoning, is this area zoned so that you can put a structure on less than 2 acres?
I'd have to look back through specifically on the ordinance itself, and Attorney Nagy may be able to relate in more detail on that.
I believe based on the history, this is a pre-existing lot that was created, so we didn't need any other type of lot relief for the size of this particular lot in this case. So that was not one of the comments that we had from the township prior to zoning or prior to this hearing.
When you say pre-existing lots, do you have a date on when that? Just, you probably have a sense of it, you don't have to.
I think we talked about that at the zoning hearing. Let me check and see if I have that information with me.
We don't have a 2 acre minimum.
I do not have the plan referenced in the deed, but I'll be happy to supplement the record if your council would like to have that information.
Please?
Yes, please.
I have nothing further.
Sarah, you have any questions?
A comment. At the zoning hearing board, this development was described as by right. So it really wouldn't matter much when the subdivision was done. The subdivision's a fact.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how big it is at this point. So
Correct.
do we need to describe that for the audience or have one of these guys do it?
So in essence, the property lot is an existing by right lot. The only reason we're here for the conditional use is simply because of the sensitive environmental features on the lot. So the lot in of itself and the ability to provide for a single-family home is by right in the zoning ordinance. But for the environmental overlays, we would not have to be before the board, and that's just dealing with the slopes and the wetlands. So that's the only reason that we're here, is just because of those environmental features, not the lot size.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
And I have nothing.
Where's my motion?
Mrs. Robinson, do you have any questions of the witness?
Thank you. So you're here for the conditional use hearing, right?
Correct.
So I think I just heard that this is for the environmental variance, something like that, right?
Yeah, previously we went before the zoning hearing board.
Yes.
And there were sections that were requested as required to be presented before the zoning hearing board.
Well, my question is, the zoning requirement, there's a reason for it. When the subdivision from Jamie's property for this parcel, it's 1.1 acres, that is high ground, and there's must be a reason to put that in. So you're here to ask for a permission to go around, so have variance. So that's the key question.
Ma-
So let me ask you this.
Ma'am, if I might, just to clarify just a bit. The zoning hearing board hearing that
Yeah.
you may have attended, the applicant was seeking relief to allow them to do things that weren't necessarily consistent with the zoning ordinance. Tonight's proceeding is a conditional use, which means that they are allowed to do what they're asking to do as long as they check certain boxes. So there's a series of questions that council asked that the witness answered to. And as long as all those answers are conform with the zoning ordinance, they generally have a right to do what they want to do. They're not really seeking a variance to do something they're not allowed to do. It's just that they have to meet certain requirements to do what they are otherwise permitted to do. So it's a little different tonight than it was at the zoning hearing.
Understand. So can I cross-examine other questions?
Certainly you can ask them other questions, yes.
Okay. So what's the size of the lot?
The lot is 1.1 acres.
Okay, what's the size of the house planned to be built?
The size of the house is 2,934 square feet.
Okay. What's the sizes of the houses around this lot?
I would call them on similar order. I don't have the square footage. It's not, we don't have permission to access everyone's property. But just from being in the area, looking at the aerials, I would say they're in similar order to what's being proposed.
Okay. And then you mentioned earlier this minimum environmental impact. So how do you measure that in the
Well,
future?
As far as that goes, that's really through the permitting process. It's through the township review, it's through DEP. And if we're meeting the standards of their permits, and construction, is conducted in the approved manner for the plan, which the applicant would then have to also provide an as-built showing that they met all those conditions in construction. So it's really through the township permitting process, it's through the state's permitting process, and then it's followed up with an as-built certification and plan back into the township showing that they've adhered to those conditions.
If, as is now, there's no house built, right? So in your opinion, professional opinion, once the house is built, do you think the ground would not be able to absorb as much water as it does now?
And that's something that, in working with your township engineer, and I think mainly because of a lot of the conditions that we're facing, he and I discussed a very conservative approach to that. And it's something I actually give credence to his view on that, ensuring that we kind of have an overbuilt system when it's done. We actually have to provide storage for the 100-year storm in those events without any modeling and those types of things. So it's a very conservative and safe approach, and I commend your township engineer for forcing us to do that.
What happens in the future? And then we just heard earlier, bridges were damaged because of Ida, right? So we have experienced in recent years more flooding. We have lived here for 17 years. So recent year, we had more water rising, flooding than before, okay? We just had the Ida, and the water actually went above the bridge. So say you build everything here, then in the future, so if our bridges are at risk and being damaged, so who is responsible? I mean, obviously there will be more water down from upstream from this property to down the stream. So how do we know that we are not at risk? Or if we're at risk, who do we go to? Township, right?
This is private property.
Yeah.
right?
This is private property, so the homeowner would be responsible for
Right,
that bridge.
of course, yeah. So then the question is, are you guys gonna be responsible for our damages? Because your upstream water, more water coming from this way?
In speaking to that, regulations may be developed based on how climate is changing and these storms are. At this point, we are designing everything to be at least the requirements of the township's current ordinances, of the state's ordinances. And in many ways, as I've mentioned, your township engineer's approach to the stormwater is conservative, so it gives some buffer, in my view, my professional opinion, which would actually assure the township that it is to the standard and in some cases, in my view, exceeding the standard, which is not a bad thing. So my point at this time is we are meeting or exceeding current regulations, and we don't know where those regulations are gonna go in the future, so that would be hard to project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any further questions?
I have a question for Heath. It's my understanding that our zoning ordinances protect the streams in that under development, no more stormwater may leave the property after development than it did before.
That's correct.
So could you just explain that a little more?
Yeah,
That you're not going to be adding water to the stream, are you?
No, and in effect, as I've described it and working with your township engineer, we're actually in the systems that are proposed, we're storing the entire volume of the 100-year storm event in, if you take a look at the plans in front of you, we have a stormwater system here, just outside of the high groundwater soils in the floodplain. We then have underground, and these are all underground systems, basically stone beds and so forth. And then we have one here at the driveway, and then we have one kind of above the driveway. The way that they're designed and the conservative approach is basically providing storage for the entire volume of the 100-year event. Those soils, per the testing that we've done testing for each of the facilities, will then infiltrate into the groundwater, and we do have, and we'll be working with your engineer in final approval, but they, in any manner where they would have overflow, they're discharged in a safe manner and not making any additional release in volume, and certainly not rate because of the way it's designed to the stream.
Thank you. I guess I have one other question. Looking on the plan, the bridge looks huge, but is that designed to get it above potential flood, or is it, it looks
Basically,
big and long compared to the ones downstream from it?
And that is something that noting the age of the construction of the ones downstream, if they were put into review as a new construction, they would not be adequate. This bridge is sized to meet the standards of DEP's crossing permit, so that basically as the storms come through, we are not backing up the floodplain, not increasing it above the bridge, and we're also not increasing it below. So it's designed to allow that flow to come through and in a manner that's not increasing either upstream or down. And we also have to do stabilization with that bridge. The bridge is actually designed to be completely outside of the stream itself. We're not actually putting structure in the stream. We're substantially outside of that with our construction, and it's designed to pass the required flows, including the 100-year floodplain there, without an impact to upstream or down.
Thank you.
Ms. Nagy, did you have follow-up questions?
I just think I can clarify without supplementing the record, the lot size question. Mr. Mockamer, looking at your exhibit, this is in the Kimberton Village zoning district, correct?
Correct.
And the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet?
As indicated on the zoning.
And how much is this particular parcel?
Yeah, this parcel is 49,579 square feet.
So I think that eliminates the dating issue.
Just, thank you.
And that's all I have.
Would you like to move Exhibits A1 and A2 into the record?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Do you mind if I?
Oh, you may have
Thank you. Do you have anything further?
I don't, I just reserve the right in case there's anything that needs answered after public comment.
Okay. With that, we will, does the board have anything further?
No.
Okay. With that, we will open up the floor to comment. If you would like to make a comment, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make your comment.
Hi there. Kara Segan, 1912 Kimberton Road. I live across the stream from this proposed development. So I'm not really concerned for my property. I'm on fairly high ground. But I do know this road, having lived on it for a number of years. I don't claim to be a stormwater management expert, but I do know that stormwater management is not an exact science. And I do know, as I think most of us do, that the historical data that has been used to establish so-called 10-year flood events and 100-year flood events is arguably out of date. I was not able to attend the zoning hearing board meeting back in June. I happened to be on vacation at the time. But I believe a video that I had of my neighbor's bridge being engulfed in a storm a couple of years ago was shared. I understand that that photo documentation doesn't rise to the level of scientific evidence. It's more anecdotal. However, I'm speaking on behalf of the residents, my neighbors, who live downstream from this development, who have very, very legitimate concern regarding the flooding. And I am referring not just to Ida, which is in our recent memory, but events that are happening every year, where bridge after bridge after bridge downstream from this property are completely engulfed. I have video from Ida, just what was that, 2 weeks ago, where the water is engulfed my neighbor's bridge and is creeping up the driveway within feet of their garage and of their home. So as it is now, property owners who live downstream from this proposed development feel like they are hanging on by a thread. And they are rightly concerned that an addition on a slope on this stream upstream from them with, I don't know how many feet of impervious surface, including the driveway, that perhaps can be clarified as this discussion continues. They have legitimate concern that this addition of impervious surface on a relatively 1 acre, small lot on a hillside is going to impact them downstream. And even another foot or two of rising floodwater can have catastrophic impact on their cars and on their property. So, again, it's kind of tricky because we all know that the data for floodplain and water, we all know that data is out of date. And we don't have the new data yet codified to present as hard scientific evidence. But I can tell you, as someone who lives on this road, that the neighbors are genuinely concerned, and their concerns are legitimate. So I'm really, again, I'm not concerned about my particular property, but I'm speaking for the neighbors downstream who are worried.
Okay, well, they seem to address that with the amount of water that property would create is being taken care of underground. The bridge is better than all the bridges downstream. So, and one question would be, is it changing the flow of that stream, the bridge? Does it increase
the
the?
bridge itself is not changing. It is managing what would be the existing flow section through without making a change in elevation. The runoff from the property, and especially with how your engineer has worked with us on
Right.
that, it would be a decrease in volume
Right.
and rate.
So it's actually, this property and the way it's being designed sounds like it's going to be better for the properties downstream. It's going to actually collect a lot more water without going into the stream, which would then raise it.
And again, I don't pretend to be an engineer or a stormwater manager or expert. I hope that's the case, and I really trust it is, and I completely, respect private property development rights and the integrity of all of the work that has gone into this. I'm simply speaking as someone who lives on this road, who knows this stream. This stream, colloquially known as Royal Springs, is typically a nothing creek that you can hop or step over. But once or twice a year, it becomes a raging torrent, and it's getting worse, and it's becoming more frequent. And I guess my concern is that the data that is being used to determine a 100-year event or a floodplain, that data is out of date. We know that the storms are getting more intense and more frequent. We have seen the catastrophic flooding that has happened in our township and in our area. We know it's happening more frequently. And to continue to build on a slope, on a waterway, it's risky.
Well, I agree, but they've taken care of that. Now, what I would say then, if it
One
is
hopes.
causing well, yes, of course. If it is causing problems downstream, then everybody upstream should do what they're doing to their property now. So that would keep less water going into that stream. And everybody downstream should probably do the same thing. New bridges and collect the water that property creates from going into the stream. And that would help everybody.
And one of the things that, if I may, we had mentioned the fact that there would be as-built certifying the construction that it would meet the plan. The other part of that, the township requires an operation and maintenance agreement where basically the homeowner is bound to keep those systems working to the standards of how it was approved.
Yeah.
So,
It's in there, but I mean.
In perpetuity.
Right.
So it's.
But somebody has to regulate that and watch over it and everything else. So it may or may not happen, but it's not happening to any other property on that stream anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
And I think the residents who live downstream and do have driveways that transverse Royal Springs realize that they're hanging on by a thread.
They are, because they're old bridges.
And they are worried that any aggravation of the flooding that is not due to environmental causes, that is due perhaps to additional development, they're worried that that is going to leave them bearing a major financial burden.
And
a
agree.
lot of property owners don't have the deep pockets that Rotelli does to put in a 25-foot. People don't have an extra $75,000.
Again, but what they're doing is keeping the water that property creates from going in the stream. So they're actually doing something positive for the people downstream than leaving it vacant. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Something better. I mean,
right,
it's not
and
worse.
we hope that that's true. I think there is, to be honest, and again, I'm not worried about my house. I like to think, but I think there is honestly skepticism for the 20 or so homes downstream from this property that have their own bridges that are getting swamped out year after year, that there's skepticism and that they are worried that the next time this happens and when it happens worse, that it may be whether it's right or wrong, that they may be attributing it to additional development on this road.
But to stop somebody from developing their property is another problem.
I
You see where you get into a problem there.
completely agree.
So as long as they're following the guidelines and best practices to keep any adverse effects on that water or anybody downstream, then they should be allowed to do that.
And the law provides that, and there has been a process that has been followed
do that.
diligently
Correct,
to make
yeah.
sure. Again, my point that, and I'll promise I'll stop. I guess if you take away one thing from my blabbering comments tonight, I hope it's that the concern is that the guidelines and the rules and the data regarding flood management and floodplain that these decisions are being based on are out of date.
Well, that may be true, but that's another discussion, because you'd have to update everything.
Right,
And then that
right.
would
And
cheat.
that's a bigger problem. Unfortunately,
Right.
this is all retroactive.
Correct.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karis, for very much for speaking for us. So I'm one house down. So also I'm here representing the neighbor right next to this property because they couldn't, they had other emergencies, they couldn't come here. So as Karis said, we live on the street, so we are fearful for this development. So if, Mr. Schneider, if you say that they have a safeguarding mechanism, that means they have to build a basin or something to retain the water?
That's in the plan,
So
yes.
that's what I think I understood that, what he was explaining.
Right.
Now, at what point we will know that's for sure? During the building process, we go see?
Well, our engine, well, it has to be
So-
approved by our engineer and it's going to be inspected. I mean, that's part of the process.
Right, to be, and I would assume had to be inspected and approved, right?
Yes.
Right. So as Karis mentioned, that we have smaller bridges and older bridges.
Right.
So any elevation of water volume, it's really pose a very big risk.
And I agree with
A
that. If they
threat.
were causing additional water to your bridges, then I would be 100% behind you. But they're not. They're following the guidelines to keep that from happening. Okay, because you're going to get increased water from bigger floods in the future without them building anything.
Right.
Right.
So,
I
but
mean,
as
so as long as they're not doing it, then nothing's changed.
but what
Nature might, but
yeah, but what if you, like Karis mentioned, what if your, all the premises, all the hypotheses
there's
based
nothing
on.
we can do about
No,
that.
but it's based on outdated information.
That's perfectly fine, but there's nothing we can do about that. They have a right to build a property based on what's there now or
Well,
what they're using.
But once, if that's the case, and once everything's built and we are having that risk, and then what? Then we,
Well,
so
I mean,
your,
I guess,
your
on-
luck, right?
Well, no, things will be changed to zoning and everything else to reflect the new standards. New standards will come out, you know, like Bernie was saying, 1,000-year flood may be part of it. And then it would change what they can and can't do on properties.
I agree with you. What we've got is our ordinances reflect the Pennsylvania stormwater best management practices. And we are hoping that Pennsylvania is updating those to match the new reality of these floods we're having. But right now, we are using that in our ordinances. And we certainly are aware of the problem. A lot of us live on roads with bridges that flood or roads that flood. And so we're aware of it, but we can't do anything about it now. We have to get to science, we have to get the ordinance changed, we have to enact the ordinance, and then on a future dwelling, we might be able to do as you suggest. Would you like a copy of this plan?
Sure. So one more question. If the supervisors, the board, does not approve this conditional use, then this development will not happen, right? Am I correct?
I think then we'll go to court. But
Yeah, I would think we'd go to court too.
No, I'm just saying that the reason we're here is because
For our
approval,
approval, correct.
right?
Yes.
For your approval.
Yeah.
So if your approval is based on the actually sound analysis and sound engineering, sound investigation, and be sure that down the stream and all the residents on the street are not going to see catastrophes in the future, then we'll feel safe. But we don't know, right?
No, no one knows.
So no one knows. And then supervisors, and another question, supervisor is for the township, for the residents in the township, right?
Correct.
Not for the developers, right?
Well,
I would say-
this is a residential unit, so there will be a resident living there,
Right. But,
a township resident,
are you,
We have to follow the rules.
as
everyone
they're
else.
set today.
So, you know, we can't do something out of bounds from
Right.
those rules. So if this development meets all the rules, we are our
Right.
hands are tied. We have to
I
accept it.
understand, yeah. But if there's a risk affecting more residents than one development, wouldn't the township supervisors take in consideration of that?
Well, personally, I would always side with the individual right. Okay, I would not take away an individual right for something that may or may not happen, especially if they're following the rules that are set in place at this time.
Well, if the
I'm not gonna
individual
I'm not
right.
gonna say, I'm not gonna go against them when they're following
Well,
everything
yeah,
they should
I
do.
have a COVID and I'm individual right. I don't want to wear a mask. I
Right.
want to contaminate, affecting everybody. It's my individual right.
That's
So
right.
you can't say that individual right is the township's responsibility to protect that.
We're
That's
protecting
really
property
not
rights and
acceptable.
we're protecting.
You're here to
following-
protect the township people, not individual right.
Ma'am,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson, just to clarify, in this process, there are certain boxes you have to check, for lack of a better
I understand.
explanation. And once those boxes are checked, if
There's nothing you could
there's
do.
nothing to do, the law requires that they grant permission for the conditional use, as long as all the requirements are met. And the reason that is because the supervisors and probably boards well before the folks that are sitting here decided that it would be appropriate to allow these type of uses and these changes by conditional use. And it is in fact permitted, it's just that you have to make sure that you're doing it a certain way. But once they check those boxes, the board really doesn't have much choice other than to follow the law and to grant the conditional use approval if in fact they've met all the requirements.
Yeah,
you.
I
You raised one.
appreciate your comment, Andrew.
You raised one other issue, and I will answer it by saying you will be assured that it is built to the plan because our engineers will be inspecting it. And so you don't have to go worry about inspecting it yourself because
Well,
we've
of
got.
course, I'm not trained as an engineer.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would not be
And
able to
nor am
inspect.
I. And so I rely on this engineer to plan it right, this engineer to make sure the plan is right, and this engineer and his guys to make sure it's built to that correct plan. So you don't need to worry about inspecting it. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions?
Okay, next.
Any other
agenda
comments? Close the record.
item. Close it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then the musical chairs again.
I guess we're doing musical
Nice
chairs
of you to
again.
come, Anthony.
That's my
See you next month with.
Oh, geez, that was my first one.
The board will issue its decision at the October meeting.
Yes,
Quinn's
Thank you.
husband said they would. have
Right?
to get
We don't do it today,
to go
right?
inspect the site, which is what he
Oh, no, yeah, no.
That's what I said. He sent us a little letter, but I'm not sure that this.
I'll get in touch with John about the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's the 18th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is another,
Another-
or approval of ordinance 194. Oh, no, public hearing, sorry. Oh, wait.
Wait, approval of
Yeah.
resolution for the minor subdivision.
Oh, jeez, I'm
plan.
way off, okay.
We're
Yes.
at 7.
Yeah, we're on 6.
Oh, 6. Oh,
TC.
TC
Energy.
Our buddies, come on up. I'm sorry. I was too anxious.
Yeah, we have one
Yeah, I
more.
went all the way back to the top.
Yeah.
We've
Okay.
got a projector just set up here real quick.
Oh.
Don't mind.
I just got comfortable. They want us to look at the screen. We're going to need more sophisticated setup. You can turn sideways.
Bronson,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a couple housekeeping items.
Yeah, go right ahead. I think we're ready.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Thompson, I'm the solicitor to the Board of Supervisors. This is the second hearing tonight. This is the application of TC Energy Corporation for a property located at 310 Fellowship Road, owned by Columbia Gas Transmission and identified as tax parcel 25-7-87.1. Property consists of 33.5 acres located in the R2 zoning district. As improved with an existing natural gas transmission facility. The applicant requests conditional use approval to permit a public utility building or use pursuant to section 503B5 of the West Vincent Township zoning ordinance in order to replace and upgrade the existing pipeline compressor station buildings on the property, and also requests conditional use approval for cut and fill areas and a stormwater facility, both located in precautionary and prohibitive steep slopes pursuant to section 1704 B1A and B and B2A and B. I have a couple housekeeping items. Exhibits I'd like to mark. Exhibit T1 is the application with exhibits. It was voluminous exhibits, several hundred pages. So I don't have individual copies. We have a copy at the township if anyone would like to see it. Exhibit T2 is an August 2nd, 2021 email correspondence with the applicant confirming that this evening's hearing date is acceptable to the applicant. Exhibit T3 is the public notice. Exhibit T4 is the proof of publication of the public notice in the Daily Local News. Exhibit T5 is the proof of posting of the property. Exhibit T6 are notice letters that were sent to property owners within 500 feet. Exhibit T7 is the Chester County Planning Commission review letter dated August 5th, 2021. Exhibit T8 is an LTL Consultants review letter dated August 25th, 2021. Exhibit T9 is a Chester County Conservation District review letter dated September 16th, 2021. Exhibit T10 is an aerial of the subject property, and Exhibit T11 is the zoning ordinance incorporated by reference. Everyone heard the last conditional use hearing. Individuals have a right to request what's called party status to the application. You don't need to be a party to ask questions or make statements. Party status is reserved for individuals that have a particular relationship to the property, such as owning property directly adjacent to or in the vicinity of this property. If you were granted party status, you'd have the ability to ultimately appeal the decision if you were unhappy with the board's decision. So with that, would anyone like to request party status to this application? Let the record reflect that no individual is requesting party status. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the applicant.
Okay. We're new to your all's process, so forgive me. We're going to do this a little different than the last applicant, if that's okay. We have a presentation prepared that we'd like to submit as evidence, and I have a couple of my consultants with me. Dan Lay, Mike Deveneaux, they're going to run through the proposal to hopefully address the two conditional use approvals that we're seeking here tonight, and then obviously will be available for any
Okay,
questioning.
is that how you pronounce your name, McNemar?
McNeemer, yeah.
Okay, if you could just, if you're gonna provide testimony, then we're gonna need to have you sworn.
Sure.
And then we would ask that if you're gonna have anyone else provide testimony, I understand you're probably not gonna be asking questions because you don't have an attorney tonight, correct?
We do have an attorney with us.
Okay.
Again, not familiar with your all's process here, so we weren't going to do the question and answer approach unless you would like us to.
However you want to present your application. I just need you to understand that if you're gonna have someone that's presenting evidence, they're gonna need to be sworn in.
Sure.
Testimony.
Yeah.
For it to be
So there'll be
considered.
3 of us, including myself.
Okay. So, go ahead and proceed. Yeah, why don't we all swear them all in, all of you guys in at the same time?
Okay.
Yeah, let's get your names for the record.
My name's Bronson McNeemer, BRONSON, McNeemar.
Michael Devano, DE, capital V as in Victor, UONO.
Daniel Lay, that's Ley.
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
And I'll just identify myself for the record as well. My name is Tom Galligan. I'm an attorney for TC Energy.
Go ahead, Mr. McNemar, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we're ready. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike to run through the presentation.
Good evening. We're here tonight to discuss 2 conditional use items for the TC Energy property at 310 Fellowship Road. Brief introduction to the site. The site is located on 310 Fellowship Road. It is an approximately 33-acre site. It's this triangle right here. The piece of the property that is for presentation for tonight and is subject to this proposal is the corner area in here. This is a little under 5 acres here. It's about 4.5 acres. It's maintained by an existing fence line, and this is where the majority of the work is proposed to
Let me just stop you there. You have an exhibit packet. Is it easier for us to mark an exhibit packet as one exhibit, or should we just take each exhibit, each thing that you're referencing as an individual exhibit? Why don't we just say this is exhibit A1?
You can say this is exhibit A1,
which is
however
which is an aerial, and then just keep in mind that if you're going to point to things, then just please describe them for the record, because we can't see them on the transcript.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
So we'll call this is an aerial indicating existing conditions. We'll call this A1.
Sure. So on exhibit A1, you'll see with me identifying with the pointer, this triangular piece. This is the 33.5 acre parcel, tax parcel number 25-7-87.1. The area TC Energy is proposing for redevelopment is in the corner of the aerial identified in exhibit A1 is a 4.2 acre piece maintained by an existing fence line. The existing use, the current use of this corner of the property, this 4.2 acre parcel, is utility. This is the gas utility operation and all of the ancillary buildings that go along with that operation.
And so this is, I guess, this shows the plan. So why don't we call this A2?
Yes. So this is the proposed site plan. We'll call this A2. And so what is proposed, the TC Energy is proposing to modernize the operations out here on this site. It's the gas operations are not proposed to cease. They will remain in operation throughout the duration of this project. And so what's going on in the proposed condition is the construction of a new, what we have identified on exhibit A2. It's this rectangular building on the north portion of the exhibit here. We have that identified as the office warehouse building. It's a building that contains some office space, warehouse space, as well as auxiliary controls for the gas compressor station. In the eastern portion of the site, up by the fence line, on what is called exhibit A2,
We're calling this as an auxiliary building, as auxiliary equipment for the gas operation. And in the middle of the fenced area, we're calling this, this is the compressor station. This is the new modernized compressor building. What's going on here? During the construction phase, as I mentioned before, none of the operation cannot stop. The gas needs to continue flowing throughout the duration of the construction process. Most of the gas for the Eastern Seaboard comes through this location. So shutting that down would be a major interruption, service interruption. So the construction is phased so that none of operations always continue. Up in the eastern portion of the site, this is a steep slope area. This is where the stormwater management basin is proposed. Yeah, and so we are here to discuss two conditional use items. Section 503B5, which is to permit the property as a public utility use within the R3 residential district. As I mentioned previously, the buildings on the site are currently in this use right now. And in section 1704B1 and 1704B2, to allow cuts and fills for the stormwater management facilities, as well as some of the ancillary buildings in the precautionary and prohibitive steep slope district. So this is kind of where we were, just to give you a background of where we were.
Why don't we call this A3?
We'll call this A3.
Okay.
Exhibit A3 is a historic aerial dated June 7th, 1958, as well as a current aerial dated 2020 on the right. And we put this up just to kind of show the existence of this compressor station back in the mid-50s, prior to the enactment of Pennsylvania's Act 247, which is the municipality's planning code. So this property, the use on this property predates planning law in Pennsylvania. And then we are also requesting conditional use for disturbance of the steep slopes. Because of the phasing.
Let's call this A4.
We'll call this
Sorry,
A4.
I keep
Sorry about that.
interrupting.
Sorry. We'll call this one A4.
And just so that we're clear, what is this?
This is a site plan with an illustration of the steep slope areas.
Okay, go ahead.
And so we're requesting conditional use approval for disturbance in the steep slopes. As I mentioned previously, due to the phasing of this project, it leaves us with very limited space to work in to keep the operations up and running. So we're really kind of hamstrung by where we can put the new buildings while maintaining continuous operations. So the conditional use would permit a stormwater management facility in the eastern and in the southeastern corner of the fenced area, as well as the auxiliary building and a retaining wall on the northeast corner here, as well as some ancillary steep slopes here for some ancillary grading.
So the areas that are shown in shaded yellow, these are the disturbance of the steep slopes.
Yes. So the yellow is the precautionary steep slope district, whereas the orange is the prohibited. And these are areas where we anticipate disturbance.
So are there other steep or precautionary slopes on that parcel, or is that all of them?
So there are others on the parcel, but they're outside the fence line. They're outside of our limits of disturbance.
So inside the fence, it shows that you're disturbing all of the precautionary and steep slopes, prohibitive steep that are inside the fence.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Questions?
That's all the
Yeah.
exhibits that you had
Yeah.
to present? Any questions from the board?
Yeah.
This may not be related to this meeting here, but I've heard many residents complain about smell, yes, and noise. Is this new facility going to take care of those issues?
Bronson, can you talk? Bronson can talk.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Many residents that live in fire solution, south, complain about noise and
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the new equipment we're installing is 50 years newer than what's currently in operation. So it's pretty easy to make it quieter as well as cleaner. So as part of this project, we've had to modify our air permit. We're actually downgrading the facility to a lesser permit, cutting our emissions nearly in half. We're also installing, obviously, new sound attenuation equipment on all aspects of the facility. So the sound will be reduced. We have modeling to help show how much, but we'll be below, our FERC certificate requires us to be below 55 decibels at the nearest noise-sensitive area, NSA. So that would be the nearest neighbor. Well, with the new equipment, we try to aim for that at the fence line to make sure that we don't have anybody that could be close enough. So in essence, it will be quieter. I can tell you from my personal experience, I've done upwards of a dozen of these facilities now, and they're much quieter. And the perceived noise is also much less. The old units are what we call reciprocating units. They have pistons like a locomotive might, so you hear that low thumping sound. New units are turbines, much like a jet engine, only we have massive mufflers on them, and it's really just like a medium hum that you would hear in the distance. We use an example of a dishwasher or something of that sort. So it's a different kind of sound that's less perceptive.
What's the percent grade that you're going to disturb in that steep slope area? The grade.
If you, let me see, back to it, so I can show you. So the area in the yellow are those sloped areas between 15 and 25, and the area in orange are those over 25.
And is it just within that square?
Yeah, so the property, and let me go back. Yeah, so this is the entire parcel.
So this is Exhibit A1 you're referring
This is
to?
Exhibit A1. This is the entire 33.5 acre parcel that TC Energy owns. This is actively farmed. TC leases this area out to a farmer. It's going to remain in farming. So when we go to these other exhibits, A2, A3, A4, A5, when we show these site plans within that box, it's this area down here. So that's where this disturbance is. There's no disturbance out here outside the fence line.
When I'm looking at that box just above the yellow there. Yeah, right there.
Yes.
It looks like half of it is in white, or is that just for the lettering?
So this is an area that falls outside of that steep slope area. So the shaded area, the colors, the yellow, the orange, it's just there to pop up in this presentation to show the areas that we're disturbing.
I think it would be useful if you described for everyone what relief you got from the zoning hearing board and why. Because I'm looking at our engineer's letter of August 25th, which I think was one of those T9s or something like that. And it talks about you were expanding the limits of the 4.3 acre fenced in area. It'll be enlarged. It also talks about impervious coverage. Are all of those things previously addressed in the zoning hearing board, or is it something this board needs to be aware of?
We didn't receive any variances from the zoning hearing board to exceed had to have anything to do with impervious surfaces or the limits of disturbance, unless I'm misunderstanding the question.
Do you think you got this letter from Ed on August 25th?
I know what letter you're talking, but we didn't receive variances to.
Right, so what did you get variances for?
So we've received 7 variances.
And
Yes, Dan's going to pull them up because I don't know the sections off the top of my head. We 7 variances related to parking, drive aisle width, and
Landscape screening.
landscape screening.
Just to clarify, of those 7 variances, we received clearance or approval for 5 directly, and 2 were conditional upon Ed's review of some additional information that we need to provide, which we're working on.
I was there. I was just thinking maybe my colleagues and my neighbors would be interested.
Sure.
But I am interested in your response to Ed's letter of August 25th, which describes on the top of page 2 that additional temporary staging area of 1,000-foot length. Would you like to, oh, it's fine, can't go back to A2 just now, huh? And you just said, I wrote it down, no disturbance outside of the fence. But this letter also describes that the fenced-in area is being enlarged by approximately 3,500 square foot near the entrance gate. Is that a temporary enlargement, and it will be put back the way it is when construction
Yes,
is done?
Yes, and I
Yeah,
think we
so-
could probably pull this back if we want to. I said our development, the proposed development, the buildings are occurring within inside the fence.
I understand.
There
but
is a,
I'm just trying to, reading something here, and then you say there's no disturbance outside
I
the fence. And
didn't
in
say there
fact,
was
you're
no
going to
disturbance.
move the fence.
I don't know that I said there
And I
was no
believe you're
disturbance.
moving the fence to make it easier to get vehicles in and out of your work site. And you are going to be staging, but when we look at the map, how long is the length of your property line along Fellowship Road? Is that staging area the whole length of your frontage on Fellowship Road?
So we are permitting the length of Fellowship Road.
Say that.
We're permitting the length of Fellowship Road. When we submitted the ESC GP3, which is the erosion sediment control general permit number 3, we permitted it's 1,000 feet, 1,000-foot length of Fellowship Road just to take care of ancillary permitting. In fact, not all of that area may be suitable for staging due to grade, but just to try to check the box and get that permitted ahead of time.
This is just my way of fact finding. So this is the 1,000-foot right here, from here up to
Yes.
here, and 150 feet wide. And by saying we're permitting, is that with us or with somebody else, or is that a FERC question or
That's with the Conservation District.
Conservation District? Okay, we only hear about what they're
Yeah, well,
doing
there's-
later, but
there's a lot going on. There's some moving parts there.
yeah, so I just want all of the parts to
Yep.
mesh. I don't like the
So
contradiction.
when Mike says that the fence is not moving, he's correct. There are there'll be two project elements outside of the fence. One will be the septic system because we weren't able to tie into the sanitary line along Fellowship Road.
Is that addressed in an update to what we've seen? Because I remember you were going to put it inside.
It just passed testing with the county, just passed the perk test. So we were waiting to see on that. So we were going to submit updated
So you
plans.
are doing disturbances
On-site.
outside the fence. So I think it would be
Well, no, there's two
simple
ways we
just-
need to define disturbance. Okay.
I just think if there's a contradiction like that, you just say, the only disturbances outside of the fence will be this staging area and the septic and our widening the entrance
Well, I'm gonna-
for vehicle access. Because when I hear no disturbance, I think, oh, cool. But then you tell me differently. So
So-
thank you, I'll let you talk.
So there's two ways to look at disturbance. The way you think of it, earth disturbance. We're looking at it from a previously FERC certificated area. So along that right of way, there two pipelines? Three.
There's 2 pipelines.
Those areas were already disturbed when they built the pipeline. We're using that area temporarily for staging to support construction.
So you're staging on top of the existing pipeline.
Adjacent to it. We're not able to work on top of the lines. And
So it's not necessarily the previous, it's getting late, but so you're not actually using the existing disturbed area, you're using an area adjacent to the
No,
existing disturbed area.
Just let me to explain a little bit. It gets complicated. So the pipeline right away, we have permanent right away, and there was temporary workspace that was used when it was constructed 50-some years ago. So what we're permitting is what was temporarily impacted before. So that is what that 150-foot width. So that was impacted at the time of installation, and then it was maintained at 2 separate 50-foot right-of-ways off the center line of said pipes. So we're trying to stay within that small area. And I think some of the confusion we're seeing here is we think in permanent disturbance, things we're going to put,
Yeah.
grass and gravel and buildings on, and then there's temporary, and that's All of that will be temporary in nature. It will be returned to its existing condition.
Okay, so is that 1,000 by 150? What is that, like 5 acres of disturbance there?
They're not necessarily going to disturb the whole area.
It's
They're just-
approximately 3.5.
I understand, but frankly, Mike, I am not confused. I'm just trying to get us both using the same language.
Sure.
And so we have talked to you a lot about what you're going to do to try to protect. We have asked you to give us assurance of a long-term protection of the ag land. We've asked you whether you could do an easement on the land. You've said you have no intention of ever selling the land because you like that buffer. But in the meantime, we've said, please protect it. And now for the 3 years of your construction project, we are taking a big chunk out of the ag land that you're protecting for us. So, it's just like, I like all the pieces of the puzzle to eventually come together. So Branson, you guys have been great. You're working with us really well, but so does Ed work with us very well. So I have his letter. It talks about the increase in impervious coverage on your site. And as silly as your paving and sidewalk increase, do you really need more sidewalk? It's like, I'm just trying to get this whole picture.
Sarah, if we could just,
Yeah,
if I could just ask the question about the temporary staging area,
Thank
that's 1,000 feet long,
By
which is the length of
1,550.
Fellowship Road that you own, your
Correct.
frontage. And that's 150 feet deep, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's the area where the existing pipelines are today?
It is.
And you're proposing as part of this project to use that 150 feet along Fellowship Road as a temporary staging area, is that correct?
That is correct.
And
yeah.
what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to place construction equipment and materials within that area?
Yes, so that'll include temporary construction trailers, parking for construction crews, equipment. Materials as they arrive on site will be unloaded and staged in that area. We may store topsoil, dirt in that area to be brought back onto the site at a later date. Since we're doing a staged approach to the construction, we're going to be putting in one building and moving to the next area. We'll need to move soils and materials around several times. So we're using that area as overflow and a staging area to be able to move things in and out cleanly.
Will there be free access to the farmland through that staging area?
The farmer doesn't access that through that direction at the moment, I don't believe, but we will not inhibit his access to that land.
And just as a follow-up, the area, the staging area is going to be put back into its existing condition whenever the construction is complete, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And how long do you anticipate that timeline to be?
We should finish up in probably first, maybe second quarter of 23.
So that's shorter than the 3 years.
Yeah, we allow ourselves a longer period just in case something would come up, permits are delayed, things of that nature. But our goal is to have the new facility in service in 1 year with 3 to 4 months of demolition of the old facility and cleanup from there.
So your FERC permit has nothing to do with where your septic is. So it's just the conservation district that lets you put it out the fence. I had the impression that, according to FERC, all of your operation needed to be inside the fence.
I'm not sure how to answer that. How was the septic sited?
Yeah, so we're using the fence line roughly as the previously disturbed area. However, the previously disturbed area extends past the fence line. We're holding the fence line as kind of our guys. Since we had to go outside of it, we can hug the fence line and still be within that previously disturbed area, permitted by FERC.
And I'd also like to point out that the only reason why we're installing the septic out there is we were denied access to the public utility along Fellowship Road.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been our preference, but I understand there was other circumstances that prevented that. It's been tough.
Okay. This has got nothing to do with the conditional use. Did you figure out how many solar panels you can put up yet?
All of them. No, I don't have an exact number for you, but
Okay.
we're working on it.
We'll be in touch.
Yep.
Thanks.
You mentioned sewage. I mean, you have to put an on-lot system in. Is that correct?
Yeah.
An on-lot system. I'm just making that clear for the record.
I'm sorry, what's the term again?
An on-lot, you
Yeah,
can't tie
on-lot,
into
yes.
to the public sewer. Okay.
Correct,
And-
yes. It's
And
on lot.
that's what you have now, but you're building where it is.
Correct, yes. It's impacting that area.
And so when you talked about your FERC permit being delineated by the fence, that was sort of just a convenient description.
Yeah, the fence line is sometimes referenced, but it is previously disturbed. So to be specific, where the septic leach field will go now is actually what we have what's called a ground bed. It's an underground structure that's electrical in nature. So it's an area that we have some old equipment that we're no longer using. So the septic system will go in that footprint just outside the fence line.
Can you describe easily for me the location of the new septic?
I'm just hearing about it tonight.
Okay, could we go back to A2 or 3 or something that shows that intended as built? That would be 3 or 4, right?
Would probably be two.
2
or
2 is the big.
or 4.
Oh, okay, thanks. Good, glad you're keeping track. 2 separate
Or 1.
slopes, or 1.
A little-
Okay, yeah. This one. Have your little pointer.
It's right about here.
Couldn't hide it in the back, huh?
You know, the slopes are up there, and we haven't previously disturbed that area.
So this is outside the fence line. And
But
it's what?
within the pipeline right away.
So it's in an area that is now grassy. It's not part of the farmland.
We're right on the edge of the current farm, right on the edge of where it is corn planted right now. It's right here. Because there's a maintained, if you look at it, there's a maintained existing
Right.
pipeline right away there.
Well, I've seen vehicles parking there, especially when we were picketing, you know.
Right here, approximately.
Okay, and that's the closest distance to that office warehouse space, which is what we'll need.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there's nowhere on this, entire area is dedicated to other portions of the site. We're maxed out in that footprint.
Do you have a lot of vehicles that have to move around on the site during the day? I see you have a driveway and you have your parking spaces and you have access to other buildings. But over there, pretty close to the red arrow, what's that big gray spot? Would you like me to point? I can't just.
Yeah, can you point out what
Go
you're?
ahead, Sarah. Point it out.
This is part of your paved area, right?
Yes.
Does it need to be?
So I'd have to look at the detailed designs, but we have to allow room for truck turning to be able to get a truck inside the compressor building in case we ever need to replace equipment. So that area there was mostly just to allow turning radius for an 18-wheeler, for a large truck.
And they've got to have pavement on it.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to present?
I think I would just like to point out the use of the facility itself is part of a larger pipeline system that provides natural gas to the East Coast. It's actually quite a bit of the gas that goes to both New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all the surrounding areas, Philadelphia, get their gas from the gas that flows through the facility. So just from a high level, want to make sure everybody understands that this is a utility in nature and that we are providing quite a bit of natural gas to the northeast. I think that's about it for us, I think. Open for questions.
The pipeline's not changing at all, correct?
Correct. The pipeline's not changing at all.
And this is a pipeline that's regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And you have permits for that
We do.
currently? Do you have to receive a permit for them for this facility?
So we are modernizing this facility under what's called a 255B, which is a FERC approval that just requires 30-day advance notice allow them to know that we are replacing the facility like in kind, meaning that we're meeting our certificate requirements for horsepower, which in essence governs throughput. So the throughput of facility is not changing. It is going to continue to function in a way that it was permitted for quite a while ago.
And these facilities are being modernized along the entirety of this pipeline?
We pick facilities, not at random, but based on a lot of factors. This facility is just next on the list.
And so is the fact that you have to stage the improvements, does that affect the need for you to encroach in the steep slopes?
The steep slopes encroachments are more for just the ability to keep it on the existing footprint for permanent disturbances. We don't want to move the fence line. We don't want to move outside that fence if at all possible. So by pushing some of the buildings to the corners and encroaching on that, it allows us to keep it within the fence line right now, all permanent installations.
And just so we're clear, you're requesting conditional use approval for cut and fill within steep slope areas as well as stormwater facilities, correct?
That is correct.
And could you just point out the location of the stormwater facilities, if you would, on this is exhibit
So retention bases there in the southeast corner is what the laser pointer is pointing to there. You can see the sloping. And of course, all the cut and fill in the steep slopes will be stabilized. We have all that detailed in our application of how we're going to accomplish that.
And you're going to be getting a permit from the Conservation District, correct?
Yes.
That's all I have. Anything else from any board members?
Do we need to?
We have to ask the
Yeah.
audience.
Okay, thank you.
If anyone has any comments they'd like to make, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
Peter Kerk, 11 Springview Lane, and this is more a curiosity question than anything else.
Peter, could you spell your name?
Ouwerkerk. You mentioned that you're swapping out the.
Sir, could you speak into the microphone rather than turn it back?
You mentioned you're swapping out the recip compressors with turbine or centrifugal ones. Are you?
Yeah, if you can just please speak clearly into the microphone. Sorry, we've got a court reporter here that's trying to get it down.
We can hear you fine, sir.
Okay. The prime driver currently is a combustion engine, or do you have electric motors on it now? And what will be the new prime driver for the compressor station?
Currently, it's reciprocating compressors of a couple different brands. They'll be swapped out for a turbine compressor, so the driver is turbine in nature, but natural gas fired.
So your prime mover is going to be a turbine, gas turbine as well? Or an electric motor?
No, we're using gas turbines, no electric motors.
Okay, that was all.
I'm George Martin, 1047 Janey Lane. We note that this facility has been in use for more than 6 decades now. And with this modernization that you're doing, it's almost certainly going to be in use for several more decades. When you came before the Planning Commission, I had asked some questions about whether or not the applicant would agree to condition that would limit the pressure and the volume that would be going through the pipes in West Vincent Township. Since that time, the township solicitor had issued an opinion letter noting that FERC has exclusive jurisdiction on something like that. But given the fact that this is our one opportunity to give future supervisors an opportunity to be heard, if in the future the applicant wants to increase the pressure or the volume of this hazardous material that's going through our township, my question to the applicant is whether you would agree as a condition to give notice to the township of any request to FERC which would increase the pressure or the volume of the gas that's going through our township. And if you would also agree to give 90-day notice to the township before there would be any increase in the pressure or the volume of the gas that's going through our township.
I can take that question. So any future projects that would increase the throughput of the facility, which is usually governed by horsepower, not so much pressure, would fall under a 7C application. And a 7C application is very lengthy, usually several years, and has a public comment period where notices are given much longer than 90 days before anything is decided. And the public, including the township, would have a seat at the table to have comments, make objections, have their voice heard in that process.
Can you just explain 7C application has to FERC?
Yeah, 7C is a FERC process, a federal process.
Do I take that to mean that you would have no objection to that being a condition to the grant of what you're asking here?
I'm not prepared to make that assertion here tonight, but we'd be happy to answer in writing at a later date.
Just so we're clear, the throughput, as the term you're using, that's not proposed to be changed as part of this application. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The pipeline will operate as it operates today under the same guidelines and pressure, and this facility is not changing that.
And to be exact, we refer to it as certificated horsepower. Horsepower is just an all-inclusive number, a way of managing the throughput of the facility. The horsepower will not be changed.
And to change the horsepower, you would have to change the turbine, right?
Correct. So just to be clear, the units we're installing are capable of more horsepower than we are certificated, and we limit those units to match that exact number. And that's something that is checked by FERC, and we are regulated by.
Okay, so notices go out to who when you're going to increase horsepower?
Correct.
No, who do they go to?
They would go to impacted landowners, so they'd be adjacent landowners, and I have to get you exact numbers of what the regulations call for, but there are notices sent out to everybody.
Does West Vincent have a?
We have neighbors on Crescent Drive, we're right above it. I have two questions about stormwater that relate to the stormwater controls and the Fellowship Road drainage. Would it be better to ask Ed to come up so I could, it's Ed's letter, and I haven't heard anything from you guys about your response to his letter, so.
Sarah, why don't you ask the applicant, and then if they
Okay.
can't answer the question, then Ed, you can certainly.
So our engineer has raised the concern about all of this heavy equipment, what it might do to deteriorate the road. And it says something back here, financial security should be provided in a form of an agreement to guarantee restoration to township standards, any public road damage. Now, that road happens to be an Upper Euclid road, so I don't know if they've been involved in the conversation or not. Not yet. So is that the kind of thing that we would increase the escrow to provide for that, or?
No, it's not our road, right? So we're not going to increase escrow for some other township, are we?
Or we might encourage Upper Euclid
Well,
to join us.
that's a phone call to Upper Euclid, yes.
To answer your question, we've been in contact with Upper Euclid, and we will abide by all of their regulations, their requirements. They have the same concerns, and we will address those.
Okay, and are they concerned about this, what you're recommending for the internal stormwater improvements on your site? Our engineer believes that it will cause serious, it says here, will aggravate the existing flooding problems at Fellowship Road and accelerate damage to the road structure.
So that's it's a pretty deep topic, but just to summarize a high level, and we're happy to get into the details there. Our stormwater plan limits the flows
you responded to this letter to our engineer?
We have not. We
So-
plan to, we're just not there yet.
It's just, that would have been useful for tonight, I think, so. Okay, so again, Mike might be thinking that's Upper Euclid's Road, but we're approving the engineering of the stormwater management that's gonna impact that road no matter who's responsible for
That's right.
maintaining it. And once it crosses the road, the water's going into Upper Euclid, but it's coming down.
From us.
Yeah, from us. And so I just want to make sure that that's getting coordinated, and we've seen what excess water has done to our roads recently, so,
So, I mean,
how do we work out that we don't have their response to the engineer letter, but we're being asked to come up with a conditional use, and I'm not sure they've addressed everything that our engineer.
Well, why don't we ask them the question, Mr. McNemar? There was a comment that is on the top of page 4, and there was a drawing concerning the design and construction of an additional culvert. It looks like it would cross Fellowship Road. Do you have an opinion or a position on that comment and that proposed improvement? Or that the improvement that was described by the township engineer?
And I'm going off of memory, if the comment is the one about the cost to improve that, as I stated earlier, that is outside of our previous disturbed area, so we can't do that work directly. I think Ed listed an estimated cost to make those improvements, and we'd be more than willing to fund those costs.
And those improvements are partially in West Vincent, but the area of Fellowship Road would be located in Upper Euclid, correct?
I'm pretty sure all of those improvements would be in Upper Euclid.
Okay. So you would need to get the permission of Upper Euclid to make those improvements.
Just to clarify that, Ed Ladshaw with LTL Consultants, the center of the road is the municipal boundary.
Oh,
So
thank you.
whatever's on the upstream side is West Vincent, whatever's on the downstream side is Upper Euclid. So it's kind of a half and half thing.
So we just have an agreement that they maintain it, but where the water is gonna come in, that first half of the road it's in West Vincent. Thank you.
Center line of the road is the municipal boundary.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
well, I'm a little confused now. Okay, the stormwater, you submitted a plan for the
You have
stormwater.
this picture.
Ed, you reviewed it.
Yeah.
And you're saying that it doesn't meet what you would like to see. Is that correct?
Generally, yes.
Do you want him to raise his hand? Do we want to
Oh,
swear him
right.
in?
Yeah,
Swear
if you
him in,
want to,
right.
if we want to rely on anything that Ed says as testimony, then why don't you just be
Please
sworn
swear
in?
him in, because we do rely on him.
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are your concerns exactly based on their plans?
The concern is, they're proposing a modernization to the facility. They're proposing an upgrade to the stormwater detention facility. But part of their proposal is to increase the size of the pipe that conveys water through the facility to Fellowship Road. So currently, there's an undersized pipe, I think. There's a lot of acreage that comes off of the uphill development, the Ewing tract. I think it might be in the 40-acre range. That water comes to the plant and goes through the plant.
Okay, well, that's not their water, that's other people's water. So let's stick to their property and what they would have to do to maintain the same amount of water to Fellowship as today.
So they have proposed facilities that will maintain the rate of runoff. So what they're proposing is a 3-foot by 5-foot pipe through the facility, which rather than water flooding over the facility, it's going to come out of a larger pipe directly towards Fellowship Road.
So you'd like them to maintain a smaller pipe?
No, our comment was to improve the pipe under Fellowship Road so that all the water is conveyed through Fellowship Road, not conveyed to Fellowship Road and coming
Okay,
out of
well,
a large pipe and.
Okay, currently, do they have piping there now for this water?
It's currently a 15-inch pipe.
15-inch pipe. And you need to increase the size of that pipe?
Mike can talk in more detail, but in general, the increased volume is to help maintain, to help retain that water on site, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can get into details here. So let me go back. Let me go to A1. I believe this is A1. Let me get everybody oriented here. This is Buyer Station, right here.
Yep.
This is Buyer Station Detention Basin.
That's to this,
This is to the south. This is to the south off of our property. This is one of Buyer Station's detention basins. This basin was designed in the late 90s, approved mid-2000s. It doesn't infiltrate. This point of analysis for Buyer Station doubles the volume from the Buyer Station pre-existing condition. So from day one, Buyer Station flooded our station.
So are you saying that what you're doing now is going to help infiltrate, or are you just
Yes.
rushing it off?
Yeah. So the challenge we were presented with was not only meeting y'all's stormwater ordinance for peak rate and volume control. I also need to keep my clients' buildings dry because for the past decade they've flooded because of Buyer Station and the excess volume that's running off of Buyer Station. So with our proposal, what we're doing is putting another detention. This detention basin is holding. It's holding none of our disturbed areas. It's holding a little bit of our hillside, but this is holding back primarily Buyer Station from Fellowship Road. From this basin, we have a 3x5 box culvert that comes down to an existing 48-inch CMP here. The outfall of the Buyer Station basin is a 48-inch pipe. The receiving pipe going through our site up here is a 24-inch pipe. So already we have mixed matched pipes. So if you look at some of the historic storms, historic photos from the people on site, you'll see what happens is the water comes out off of Buyer Station, stages up in a little low point in a low area here. Some gets through this 24-inch culvert, but a lot of it starts to stage up and it overtops and it floods through the site. It goes through all the existing buildings right here down to Fellowship Road. So what's going to happen now is the water from Buyer Station and from a portion of our hillside will stage up inside the basin as well as stage up inside this 3x5 box culvert. The 3x5 box culvert is more of a supplemental storage area than it is a conveyance area. Where I think the confusion here is, right, so there is existing flooding that happens out here on Fellowship Road and in this area of our driveway. From the water that comes down Buyer Station, the water that comes down the hill, and the water that comes down Fellowship Road. That's going to stay. It's not going away. We're improving it. We are improving it slightly by putting the water underground. It's getting to the same location at a different timing. We're offsetting the timings of the peaks. And what happens is this depressed area here, it's going to continue to pond up as it does now. The ponding will be a little less than it is in existing, and the water, instead of backing up on our site and ponding out all out here in the Fellowship Road, it starts backing up through this 3x5 box culvert into this detention basin here as well. So there's some infiltration that happens here in this basin as well. So the overall basis of the design for all storms that are specified, all return periods specified in your stormwater ordinance, we're reducing the peak rate. We're also reducing the volume for all storms. Now, in the previous testimony, they talked about, the science has changed. So we have the luxury. We did this model in PC Swim. PC Swim is a stormwater modeling software. It was developed by the EPA. It's the most state-of-the-art stormwater management software there is that is available right now. We designed this project with that, and we take into account a lot of things that your traditional modeling package for land development don't. One of the things we are able to do is we're able to take historic storms. So we for the submission packages, we looked at the return periods that are in your ordinance. But as I said, I also need to keep my clients' buildings dry. So we looked at historic storms. We looked at April 2019 when there was 4 feet of water across this site and Fellowship Road was underwater. We modeled that. And we're showing that, for that period as well as other historic storms, because we're pulling these from a local rain gauge. So as rainstorms happen and the USGS updates the rain gauges, we're able to pull real-time data into our model and look at it and see how it affects our model. And so we're showing for not only your return periods that are specified in your ordinance, but for also some of these more historic, peaky, flashy storms that are coming, we're improving conditions. Again, is it a completely dry condition on Fellowship Road? No, it's not. This is a sagged vertical curve right here. This is there's nothing we can do. There's nothing you can do. That's the low spot of the road. That's where water goes. But at the end of the day, our design is improving conditions from what are out there now.
Okay, you're saying that it's improving, you're saying it's not. Is that correct? All right, so.
A simple analogy, today, water floods through the plant over a wide area. Today, there's sinkholes and washouts on Fellowship Road. There's cones. There's sinkholes on the edge of the road. They're putting a large pipe through there now, so that wide flood area is going to be reduced to, I'll use an analogy, it's going to come out of their site like a fire hose at one point in a bigger pipe towards your road and Upper Euclid's road.
But that's not correct. You're describing a situation where if I had a gate in here and this basin was filled up and I opened the gate and let all that water flow through. The water stages up. At the beginning of the storm, the water comes into this basin. It starts flowing down the box culvert and it trickles out. It goes across and goes to the culvert. As the storm picks up, this structure fills up and stages up and starts to pond here, which prevents the water from coming out like a rifle barrel through the box culvert and starts staging up back up through the box.
Yeah, just keep in mind, we've got a court reporter that's got to take all this testimony down.
Yeah, so as the storm progresses and reaches its peak, this area is already flooded, so the water is not pouring out. It's coming through this culvert and it's staging up. The culvert is at a slope, so the water is staging up in the culvert and back into the basin. It's not just flowing out of the box uncontrolled. It's hitting a maximum tailwater. By the time this structure, by the time there's flooding shown here, this structure has 4 feet of water already, which is staging up back through the box culvert, which prevents it from flying out of the box culvert.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So what you're proposing is going to protect your buildings from some of that flow coming off.
As well as improve conditions for West Vincent Township and Upper Euclid Township.
Well, there's a difference of opinion there, but.
Yes.
And this is why I
Yeah, right.
And my, part of my, not this, my, is that you're increasing the impervious coverage by approximately 23,000 square feet. Decreasing lawn areas and increasing impervious coverage. So how, all of this you're talking about with box culverts and stuff, I can see where it just is concerning to me that, so you're not going to let it sheet flow across lawns that might have had some infiltration capability. So you're going to have a lot more impervious coverage. So more of it's going to go rushing someplace. So I see where there's a difference of opinion here.
So yeah, what are you doing about the additional water from the impervious?
So we're kind of, let's describe this increase in impervious surface is gravel area. That's going to be ASHTO number 57 stone. It's drainage stone. There's no fines in it. We're putting a geogrid in there. We're trying to let the water get back into the ground. However, but we are putting a detention basin. Like development increases impervious surface, and that's what we're doing.
I mean, that water retention basin is to take care of your water, but it's really not your water.
It's not. So what we're doing, due to the limitations of the site and the way we have to phase it, we're over detaining
somebody else's water in place of yours.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And just to keep in mind, the applicant will be obtaining land development approval.
Right.
I mean, at some later point.
Yep.
So we're really talking about use here. Obviously, you're raising issues concerning health, safety, and welfare issues, but.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I knew more.
I'm done.
Anything else you'd like to present? Mr. McNemar?
Nope, we're good, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the record, and we have 45 days to issue a decision. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Did you come from 4 different cities again? 3. Okay.
Just so that you move the exhibits, that's A1 through A4. Move those exhibits into evidence.
Yes, we'll get those to you first thing tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. New business.
You're good.
New
I
business,
think so,
finally.
yeah.
Approval of resolution 19, 2021.
Try to wait this out. Okay. Can I just make that motion?
Where is it?
Everybody's leaving.
It's number 7.
Yeah. Number 7. Can I just make the motion, or do we need to talk about something first?
We make the motion second, then we talk, right?
All right, good. I make a motion to approve Resolution 19, 2021 preliminary/final minor subdivision plan approval for 1830 St. Matthews Road for a 2-lot subdivision.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those
In favor?
there you go. Brain.
Aye.
Aye.
This is it? You've come all this way to show us this?
That's okay. I don't need to say anything.
But you had any...
I'll take the approval and run.
Smart
Yeah,
move.
I'm sorry you weren't further up on it, but we are thrilled with this conservation subdivision protecting.
That's done.
Yes, I got that message. So having the conservation done, preserving those 2 beautiful lots with that wonderful view shed. But don't tell the neighbors on Kimberton Road, that property abuts Kimberton Road at the next place upstream from that bridge. So,
Okay. All right. Thanks.
okay, thank you.
Set the date for conditional use hearing, Camp Hill.
I believe the minutes that I read said we already set that date.
Yeah,
That's the
okay.
18th at our last meeting. So should we affirm it?
And also set a date for 86 Beaver Hill.
I could suggest that we do that because we didn't do that at the last meeting. So let's set the date for both of them for October 18th.
Is that the next meeting?
Yes, that's our next meeting. And will we have what we need? Mark, will we have what
Yes,
we need?
we have authorization from both applicants for the 18th, and we're going to have the planning commission
Okay,
have sufficient time to review those applications as
good.
well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next is the approval of
Do we need to
uniform and
take a vote on it?
non-uniform.
Set the date?
Set the date? Do we? We don't have a motion for it, but,
Okay, I'll
Yeah, I
make a
would suggest-
motion to set those 2 dates as discussed.
okay.
Second. Second the
Any
motion.
comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 10.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the 2022 minimum municipal obligation for the uniformed employees in the amount of $68,279.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
that was for the police, 68,000
Right.
for the police, right?
Uniform.
Yeah,
Okay.
uniform.
Oh, uniform,
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, then I've got a motion to approve the 2022 minimum municipal obligation for non-uniformed employees in the amount of $41,500.
Hold on a second here. Are they going to be all part
Yeah.
of that same motion?
Yeah, well.
Okay, I'll second the motion then.
Any comments, questions from the audience? No, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would like to make a motion to approve the selection of Practical Energy Solutions, Inc. as the consultant for our clean energy transition plan. And we recommend our approval to the county commissioners and request theirs for a total of $69,000, of which the township's contribution is $4,821.
And I'll second the motion.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I make a motion to authorize the submission of an application to Chester County for the Vision Partnership Grant in the amount of $10,535 to develop regulations on forestry management.
Second?
I don't know anything about this. What's this?
We've had a lot of, did you want to answer, John? I'm losing my voice.
Apparently, a couple of years ago, a similar proposal was presented to the board that was not approved. This application is essentially to develop regulations with respect to, in large part, forestry management, the tree cutting, tree harvesting on properties. While the incident of tree harvesting is a permitted use, this is going to focus primarily on regulations with respect to the operation itself. Stormwater management issues, access to the road, those kinds of things. And that's we believe, a valid use of the subdivision ordinance and to set regulations on how the activity can be undertaken. We're not regulating the activity, but what can be done to protect the environment as part of the activity.
So right now, no one needs a permit to,
You gain access because you can gain access to a road without having a clear sight triangle. Most major construction sites have a tire washout from the site to the road. There is no requirement now. There is no impervious surface in this operation. It's all mud. So when a tractor trailer leaves the road, it takes the mud with it. So this would essentially provide regulations for how access is gained to the site, how regulations are, I would expect it to be pretty much similar to a subdivision ordinance. And same thing with the stream bank, where there is, the activity is close to stream bank, how stream bank how the stream can be protected, especially if it's an EV or high quality stream. So it's managing that aspect of the activity so that the activity itself has little harm to the environmental aspect of it.
yeah, I guess I understand. I just don't trust government, so that's a problem. Okay, any comments, questions? You second that, right?
I did.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna say no on that one.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 20-2021 to authorize application to the Natural Lands Green Region Program in the amount of $10,000 to acquire picnic tables, benches, and kiosks for the Upper Park.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, again, authorize application to Natural Lands Green Region Program. Why are we going through them? Is it cheaper?
It's actually a PICO-funded Green Region Program that Natural Lands administers.
So
But I mean,
it's
somehow we
PICO.
get the picnic tables,
The-
Yeah.
benches.
It's a grant in the amount of
It's PICO's
$10,000.
money. So you
Okay.
have to go to Natural Lands to get PICO's money.
Okay.
So it's reducing the cost to acquire these projects by
Gotcha.
$10,000.
Any comments, questions from the audience? No? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
I could make a motion to accept the proposal by Five Star Interactive in the amount of $69,966 to provide cabin chassis for a 2022 dump truck. This is a budgeted item.
I'll second the motion or accept the proposal.
Um,
What we're doing here.
It's
Yeah.
accept proposal.
Got a question.
Yes.
So this is going on to an existing truck?
No, this is a brand-new truck. You buy it in pieces. You buy a cabin chassis from a dealer, and then a separate dealer puts the dump body, the salt spreader, and the plow on it.
Okay, so 14 and 15 together.
Yeah.
Well, that's all part of the cab and
So
chassis.
this is 100 and
120-some
20
thousand,
grand.
right. This is, if you recall, we had anticipated making this recommendation to the board earlier this year, but the products were not available at that time. They have since been made available, and the production line is working. So now's the time to purchase a truck, and then because it's so late in the process, we won't get it until April or May or June next year, so it'll be a 2022 dump truck. But
Okay.
it is budgeted in this year as an expense.
And is this replacing a truck?
Yes, sir. It's replacing one that's falling apart.
Okay. We have a second, did we?
Yes.
Yeah. Brian?
I think you may have partially answered this, and I'd like to go and add one thing for the future, next one.
Mhm.
This is the truck that was delayed due to chips not being available.
That's correct.
Okay.
They're available now. Right.
And in the next part is the, I'm going to call it the dump body or
Mhm.
the dump part of the
Right.
truck. Is it going to be done in stainless steel?
Yes.
Because okay.
Everything's stainless steel, the plow, the salt spreader, and the dump truck.
Got it. So it won't be lost the way one was many years ago.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Okay. Seeing no other questions? All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to accept the proposal from EM Cuts, Inc. in the amount of $59,611 for the stainless steel body plow and spreader for the dump truck. This is a budgeted item.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve farm leases, and then I've got to toss this back down to John.
Mr. Chairman, recall the board approved, I think it was 4 leases last year. I was remiss in that there is a lease that was not done. It was for the Griffith property, and in terms of the maintenance of the, oversight of maintenance of the property, and also farming some land that the individual who maintains or oversees the Griffith property also leases some land for farming. So I thought it appropriate to put that on the agenda, but because last year the board said they wanted all the leases to come up at the same time, and you were interested in raising the rate for the 4 that were approved last year, I took the liberty, it's my liberty, to extend all the leases for 5 years, beginning 1/1/22, and increasing the rental rates for the 4 existing leases to $75 an acre they were all varied in the low 50s. And then in recognition of the work that the farmer who provides the 5th lease at the Griffith property, in exchange for that, we'll let him lease his 1 parcel of land at no cost. So that's where we are
So we
today.
have somebody that's maintaining the Griffith property?
Yeah, he's like the overseer. He does some.
Okay. While we're on that subject, where are we on that? That building was supposed to be sold, so for sale.
I've only been here a few months, so I'm a little behind the curve.
We were waiting for the pipe to go through for the sewer.
You and Bernie must have.
Yeah, remember?
I don't have.
No.
Yeah, we were gonna put that up for sale as soon as they got the piping done through the property.
So it was a pipe from, like, the courts at Chester
Yeah.
Springs
Going out to the other
to the
septic.
spray field.
Yep.
I think it's before my time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay.
We might need to check with Brian Kulikowski.
Well, it's an unoccupied farmhouse.
It's an unoccupied farmhouse, and to be honest with you, whatever else is going on, I just haven't had time to.
We're paying, taxes on it and
We're
everything
paying
else,
taxes
and
on it,
there's no
right.
reason to let it sit there and just fall apart.
Correct.
If somebody can use it. Okay, well, that's a totally different discussion, I guess.
I'm sorry, yeah.
So I'll second that approval of the farm leases.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Brian?
I'm still trying to figure out what exactly is happening. Are we renewing all the farm leases or just one?
We're renewing the 4 existing leases and adding a 5th lease.
John,
They-
you might mean 3 and an existing.
Oh, 3, okay, yeah, sorry. There are several existing leases. They would expire the end of next year. with the additional lease for the Griffith property is a better word to frame it. And the board wanted to extend the leases and to increase the rate. I felt it appropriate to consider all the leases to be extended for a period of 5 years, beginning 1/1/22. And the rate would increase, and the Griffith property would be at no cost to that individual because he maintains oversight of that property.
So all the leases are going to extend for 5 years from 1/1/22?
That's correct.
Okay. And in various township committees, the leases and the conditions of the leases have been discussed
Right.
at length
Yeah, it's before
for
my time.
years.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like any changes are being made on the various conditions or concerns that they've had in these committee meetings. They're going to be applied to the leases. Is that true?
The lease agreements were prepared by the Sustainability Committee, I believe. Now, I don't have any history here, but I believe they're relatively similar to the existing leases.
Okay, so in other words, you have not gone and looked at the differences between the existing leases and the proposed leases?
I did, but it was a while ago.
Okay.
Sorry, I just remember.
But you don't think there's anything significant
I
in
don't believe
there?
there's anything significant, or I would have, if there was an issue of significance, it would have been reported to the board.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to go in and make one observation that I did stumbled across it, I read it somewhere, about other municipalities that have some similar concerns about conditions of the soils, et cetera, the lands that they maintain. And one of the things that some of them are doing is that they're taking them out of production, and then I'm going to say, changing the maintenance of the soils to what the township has found by research, grants, get an expert to do it, of how to make them better soils. And I'm just tossing that out as an idea, maybe at the end of the 5-year lease, something to think about for, the next time around.
That's something the Sustainability Committee can certainly undertake, but it's a longer-term process than,
Well,
And you might be a supervisor by then, Brian.
I don't think that's.
I won't make any comments. As I said, the leases have been discussed for years.
Okay.
But it's going to take time. Doesn't surprise me at all. All I'm doing is throwing out an idea which I have not heard discussed in any of the committee meetings prior to this. So
Thank you.
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. The only thing I would like to put into that lease of the person that's handling the Griffith property, that as soon as the property's sold, then it would go back to a, cost per acre,
Oh, I got it, yes.
right?
Okay,
'Cause
yep.
There would be no
Right.
maintaining of that property
Yeah, I got
after
it.
that.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, so it would essentially have a termination date, possible termination when the property is sold.
No, because.
No, I
the-
understand.
The farmhouse is only what, an acre or 2 acres?
Yeah, it's a small piece of ground,
It's a
but
small piece of ground, that's not being farmed. So it would just automatically,
the amount of acres he farms would then be charged at $75 an acre.
yes,
Yes, I got it.
at the time of closing.
At the time of closing, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a second, all that stuff, right? Or did we even have that?
Yes,
Oh,
we
okay.
did that.
And any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, now are we?
We're on number 18.
Motion to approve the supplemental appropriations to our local fire companies. Could I make this one motion? It
Sure,
said
keep going all the way through.
Ludwig's Corner, 15,000, Kimberton, 25,000, and Ridge Fire Company, 5,000. I make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Are you okay, Brian?
They're for different values. Is the pricing split based on the areas of the towns or the relative areas, or was it?
I think it looks like based on the percentage of loss.
Yeah.
Yes.
They
Due to
all-
COVID?
Due to COVID, they all were thwarted in their normal fundraising.
Okay. And the other question I have is I'm guessing this probably wasn't in the budgeting process. Is it being pulled out of where?
Reserves.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. I'd like to make a motion to authorize, I really don't want to, I wish we didn't need it, to authorize the advertisement bids for snow removal services.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments, questions? Yes, Brian? You might as well just stand there.
You should just get a stool so you'd be at the right height and stay there.
Well, buying his own microphone.
It gives me exercise. It's a good thing. This thing is, you know, how many years, decades have we've been down to like either no bids or one bid?
Well,
The one thing that I kind of wondered about this, you know, it's been bugging me for a while too, that is there anybody else that is in a similar situation where they've got normal facilities to go and deal with their plowing and, you know, you need special, you know, people for the surges. And the one thing that I thought of is airports. They've got the same issue. They need to keep the runways open when it's snowing. They normally have their own equipment. I suspect they probably have, you know, a similar contract of that they can bring in people. Have we ever tried talking to airports and see how they do it?
Well, this is not for a surge. This is for normal snow. This is part of the typical snow removal operations for any typical storm. And because of the anticipated dedication of some additional roads, the demand will be greater, we believe, in this year. So this is not something that we don't use on a periodic basis. This is something we use every winter.
So this is different than in times gone by.
I don't know what time's going on
it's the
by.
same.
No, it's the same.
It's the same thing.
But there is something different that was in our manager's report, which wasn't in this motion, is John has proposed that we do the bid for 1 year with 2 one-year options. Because then we might get some other companies to bid on it, because, you know, we've put them out there and nobody wants to come move our snow. So the idea that it could be potentially a 3-year contract might get us more bidders. So there's a slight change, but it's.
Okay, I do know that we've had other years that, you know, we haven't need the supplementary service at all because the township crew has been able to go and handle it for.
On a light year,
going through.
sure. It's only on heavy years that we have the problem. Heavy
So-
snowstorms.
That's why I said it's on a surge basis. But hey, try for 3 more years. Don't hit me for this because it's related. At one time, we were storing salt down in Delaware. Are we no longer doing that, or it's all up here now?
I believe there's still a small amount down. I don't think we used $40,000 worth of salt last year, but we used a fair amount, but.
I'm guessing we're adjusting our state contract again this year?
To the extent that we can, but again, the state contract is, you have to guarantee a minimum.
Yep.
But there's a maximum.
It's a take or pay business.
Yeah, so
I
it's a
understand that.
dartboard side. So,
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I almost hate to say, maybe we'll have more snow this year and use the salt.
Okay, moving on.
Dana, did you have your hand up?
Dana Allen, 21 Ivy Lane. And I just wanted to clarify that for the snow, we're talking about trying to get additional resources so that we
Yes.
can, so for what we have, not just for what's being dedicated, but what we have right now, that we might get a little better service?
Not better service, the same service.
Okay, and I'm asking that because I did speak to some people specifically at Byers Road who were stating they felt that it was really slow in getting them out, and I was wondering if this would help that problem at all.
No, I think the typical snow removal process is to do the major roads first and then the secondary roads. Because there's no sense in doing a secondary road if you get the major road and you can't get anywhere. So that's the reason why some places are a little off beaten. But I think with the additional dedication in that area and a contractor dedicated to that, I think you'll see an increase in this level of service.
Okay, so it might
Provided
help,
it snows.
It might help certain areas then
It may have, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Public comment?
Do we
Did we
vote on
vote
that?
on that?
No.
No, sorry.
We got a second.
Aye.
See no more. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we're on public
Public.
comment. Yes, Brian?
If I can just jump in real quick.
Yes.
I wanted to give a shout out of kudos to our street department, our police department, our staff for doing an excellent job in bailing so many people out during the storm. They just did up and over and above, and when I saw what Mike Hoga and a contractor had done to the Buttonwood Bridge in 24 hours, I was blown away. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, it was just phenomenal. The job they did on French Creek Road, once again, which is a phenomenal job in a short period of time. I know that there were other intersections where people were stranded, and I believe that was part the police and the road crew that got them out. And then they did a water rescue down on French Creek of one of the homes there. You know, I just imagine that most of the township has missed that, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a phenomenal job. And
It
so
was. It was
kudos
fast.
to all involved.
Here, here.
That's it.
Okay. Now, Brian.
I'm going to be kind of in the similar thing. John earlier in the meeting mentioned about the cyber security system that the township had installed. I was the one who asked about it several meetings before. And in addition to John mentioning that, you would let me know, I appreciate that. You sent me a link to the company. I had never heard of the company before. I looked at their website. I looked at the clients they've got. It's, I had never heard of them before. They sound like they're really a top-notch outfit. Good job on finding them. It's well before your time, the township's website was attacked and taken over by someone. And, I don't know whether the township website is separate from the township operations or not. I don't know whether it protects both of them. Hopefully, it definitely does the township operations. It's a good thing, good job.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Barry.
I was at Ludwig's Quarter Horse Show.
Name and address.
Oh, Barry Libro, 1012 Pottstown Pike, Chester Springs. Was at the horse show for Labor Day, 10th year of doing that, running children's games. You guys had a booth there, the West Vincent booth. What committee ran that?
We did not.
What's that?
This board did not.
The board did not run it.
Right.
No, what, was there a committee that ran it?
There were individuals.
So it was what, like EAC or?
No, individuals, Barry. Like if you saw a tent that said the Dolcino family, that would be individuals, right? It's the same thing, individuals.
So you're saying it was not an official, it was not from West Vincent Township?
True.
Okay, that would have been easy just to say you guys had nothing to do with it, right?
Well, that's what I started out with.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't hear it. I must be getting old age. All right, thank you.
We had nothing to do with it. This
Okay,
board,
that's
the
what I wanted to
township
know.
had
Okay,
nothing to do
thank you
with
so
it.
much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Is that it? Need a motion?
Move to adjourn.
I second. Thank
All
you
those in
very
favor?
much.
Aye.
Aye.
Are you
Do I
gonna
have
make
bills?
us sign
Oh,
stuff,
crap.
Kathy?
All right, what's she do here? She leaves? And we have to sign checks? What's the deal here? She leaves when the check signing starts. take those.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
there's
there.
a line for only one signature, does it matter?
What was that? Oh, you can just sign over top of it, like on that line and then above it.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Adios.